Well, hi, welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. We hope you haven't forgotten us. This is Kimberly and Tim Scott, and we're back.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
We have not, in 3 years, we've not taken a break.
That's right. And
I mean, none.
no, that's true. And it's been about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And so this break that we've taken, we intended to take a couple weeks because we celebrated 15 years, our
Yeah, we did.
anniversary. And we had a little bit of a road trip, which was precious and great timing. Some of you don't know, but our family was hit with COVID. Our immediate family, me,
Right.
Gracie, a daughter, my daughter's boyfriend, and it kind of whipped through our family. So that was part of the reason why we took our break.
I did not get it.
Yes, you did not.
I'm
You
vaccinated.
Yes, twice, just in time.
Yeah, just in time.
So there was that, which was scary, and then our life took a big shift. And for those of you who aren't on social media, I'll just share with you that it's been now about 2.5 weeks ago that my daddy went home to be with Jesus due to COVID.
Yeah.
So at the same time that our family was battling it here in San Diego, up north in the beautiful Northwest, my mom and dad together got COVID at the same time. Yeah. And sadly, my dad's life here on earth ended. And that's been now on, it was his 77th birthday.
On his birthday,
Yes,
he went to be with
he
the
went
Lord.
home with the Lord after a couple of really painful weeks, and
Yeah.
I flew up to be with my mom. So we have full hearts, heavy hearts, but also like everything else we do in this show, we take what we feel like God has helped us through with in His Word, and we offer it humbly. And so we have a few things to talk about regards to grief in the next several weeks.
So a few years ago when we decided to start this organization and the ministry that we have, the outreach ministry to at-risk families, as well as our podcast and other things that we do. We've got a new teaching series that's coming up towards the end of the summer. It's going to be a weekly virtual Bible study. That's going to be coming to you. Very excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm working with a church community movement, which is comes out of Eastlake Church. Anyway, we're going to be doing that. That's coming up. But when we named this, we're struggling with the name for our organization. And our daughter, Gracie, actually came up with Hope Rescue.
She did.
And she didn't know how to spell it, but
She's sitting with an arm's length of us right
actually,
now.
she knew how to spell it. But anyway, that was just a little jab at humor.
Dad joke
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah. She's quite a fine student. I have to say that. She's got a card up telling me what to say right now. But anyway, so we called it Hope Rescue. And the reason I bring that up is because it's for this very time in our loss, especially Kimberly's, her mother, her two brothers.
Yeah.
They've never had a day. Well, the kids, Kimberly and her brothers, have never had a day without a dad.
Right.
Until 2.5 weeks ago. I'm getting choked up.
I know. I'm trying so hard.
So,
Don't get me started. Yeah.
but anyway, we decided we wanted to do a little series, 3-4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, on grief. And we had one of our listeners who asked for this, a guy named Dan. We'll keep it at his first
What's up,
name.
Dan?
But thank you for this idea.
Yeah.
We had
Who
no
also went through
idea.
loss.
Yes, went through a loss. And we had no idea when Dan asked for this that we were going to go through what we've gone through.
Yeah.
And
We
so,
processed it and talked about it with that email and said, let's put this on our list of
Yeah,
things in the
we
next
had-
couple months. So we had already pulled some passages and started doing
studying.
some research.
Yep.
And so, and had no idea that we were about to walk that journey ourselves. So Dan, the Lord used you to prepare our hearts as well. And so, just another beautiful part of what can happen, in the community of Christ. Yeah.
Yesterday, I preached a message at Torrey Pines Church that it was about grief. And so if you'd like to get that archive, Torrey Pines Church, you can go and see the archive of that. Obviously, it was live yesterday, but it'll be available this week. But talking about before we get into, I've asked Kimberly, we've agreed that Kimberly would kind of share her journey a little bit. We're going to share in these next few weeks her journey, her brother's journey, her mother's journey, my journey with the losses in my life. But she's going to share her journey. But here's what I want to say before Kimberly shares how she's been going through this time. Journey of grief is different for everyone.
Yeah.
And what I want to make sure that you understand, there is, now next week, we're going to talk about the steps of journey, the 5 steps of grief, And there are some myths around that. We're going to take care of that next week and clarify that and hopefully bring real value, because there's a lot of value in what was written about that. Mm-hmm. But your grief is unique to you. Yeah. It's unique to your relationship with the person you lost. It's unique to your understanding of who God is and how God interacts with us. It's unique to your journey of faith. Mm-hmm. It's unique to where you are in your life, in growth and development. So don't compare yourself with anyone else. Your journey is unique to you. And everything that we have to say over the next few weeks, I want you to run it through that grid of really understanding the uniqueness of how God is taking you through that process. And if you're dealing with people, we're going to do a podcast on how to deal with people who are grieving. We want you to listen to these podcasts, learn from these, and begin to interpret that into your own world and your own experience.
And possibly share it, because as we know, 2020 was brutal.
Yes, it was.
We are just a very small slice of the pie and of something that's been happening globally for people and experiencing extreme loss. Of course,
yes.
People that they love, but also because of the trauma the world's been in. Marriages, relationships have been broken down. There's so many different elements that this will be helpful for. But
well, the greatest struggle of the journey of COVID was that you were stuck with me 24/7. Like, are you ever going to leave to go to work?
Hey, babe, we made the best of it.
We had a good time.
We watched a lot of Netflix.
Yes, we did. I've seen miniseries. Lots of documentaries.
Yeah. So
anyway,
let me share a little bit
babe.
About my dad. I am 54 years old. I was an only daughter with 2 brothers. I was in the love sandwich. I had an older brother and a younger brother.
And who was the boss?
And pretty much the boys would say I was.
You were.
And I always said I was spoiled but not rotten. So
well, I married you. I know who the boss is.
I was. Yeah, don't you forget it.
Yeah,
but I will definitely say that I was a daddy's girl, and I knew I had a good thing going on very early in life. But although I have not geographically really lived close to my parents because they were missionaries and literally moved in 58 years of marriage this August to have moved. My mom, this will be her 59th move. My mom, by the way, is now living with us since my dad passed and will be remaining with us as her home. And so she just made her 59th move in 58 years.
I was a little worried about her moving in until she moved in. And then I realized, there's only one jerk in the house. And it's not my daughter. It's not my wife. And it's not my mother-in-law.
We are your harem now. You have a lot of girls. Even the dogs are female.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's God trying to tell you something.
I need to get a male dog.
I know. There you go.
Not really.
Anyway, so I'm sharing my story. And of course, every day, because my mom is living with us, I'm watching this process in her life and how she's dealing with it through her eyes. She's not with us right now. In the moment she's at the store, but I am going to have her on in a couple weeks, and we're going to talk together a little bit about how she's come through this in the last few weeks. But I will say this: my dad, because of their lifestyle and having traveled, and we lived overseas and on the mission field in the Philippines, and he traveled throughout Asia. Early on, he actually has had close encounters with death, and that we were fully aware of. I always talk about, as a believer, there's so many times, or there's several times in anybody's life where you can see where God has fully protected you, whether it's a car in front of you that pulled out just in time, or, you were 5 minutes late to work and you found out on your path to work, there was a huge accident. There's things that we can see where God has kept us and protected us, but there's so many more times that we'll never know of that God kept and protected protected us. But my dad was one of those guys where he had very close encounters with his mortality. And so my mom, due to his health and other circumstances, dramatic circumstances that happened to them on the mission field, has since early in their marriage known that there was a possibility that my dad, and dealt with the possibility of my dad passing. That being said, she has flexed her trust muscle now for a very long time. Yeah. And we have been on that journey with her long distance because we've not physically lived near each other. And we've watched the Lord, especially in recent years. My dad had his first heart attack a couple years ago where they literally worked on him for 12 minutes to bring him back, and he came back. And he came back raring to go.
He was literally dead.
Literally
table.
dead.
And they pronounced him dead, but they decided to continue working.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so there was something very special that happened in my heart in that moment because I feared my dad, losing my dad for so many years. But for me, what happened in that instant was I recognized that day that we are not given one extra day beyond God's purpose for our life, but we are also not shortchanged a single moment beyond what He's called us to do. Yeah. And so in that day, the Lord said again, "You're not done yet, Paul." And he went on to live another few years of full ministry and traveling the world and the globe, which was his love. So when this came around with him getting COVID, I will say when I found out that my dad had COVID that morning, Gracie was with me here at the table, and I broke down sobbing, and I almost couldn't stop sobbing, and it was like a grief, and I feel like the Lord was kind of letting me know, prepare your heart. This is going to be the beginning of him coming home. And I shared that with my husband and a few people close to me. My mom came through COVID beautifully with mild symptoms, but within days, my dad was hospitalized, and then the journey began, and it was painful. I'm wearing his jacket today. Sorry.
You want me to talk?
It's such an ugly jacket.
It really is.
But it was his favorite jacket. Yeah, sorry.
From the 80s.
It was his favorite. And he wore it every day walking. And so I have had moments of, excuse me.
It actually, while she's coughing, it should be a crime to wear that jacket for anybody, for Paul Adams, her dad, or for her. So I don't have any thing against Jean's jacket, except this is the dyed, what do they call it? Acid wash?
It's acid wash.
Oh boy. That was 1980s all over the place.
I got a tickle in my throat as I'm crying.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a really bad jacket, but it's precious to me. And I've had moments of feeling sadness and grief, but also moments of great joy and remembering him. And his memorial is not for another several weeks, but but we're getting through it. And my mom has been a beautiful example of that, which has been incredible. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I have really good days, and then something will happen. Like the other day, I was sharing with my family. I was on my way home from the store, and I went to call my mom and used Siri.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
To call my mom, and it went to my dad's phone number. And it was his voice that answered the phone. And when he did, I just had to pull over my car and started sobbing. And I actually left him a message just telling him how much I loved him and missed him. And so there's those moments where you're all of a sudden, kind of taken aback.
Has there ever been a moment where you felt despair? Or sadness.
The sadness I felt really deeply. Sorry, I still have a tickle.
Yeah. Well, here, let me share a little bit while she's trying to clear her throat. And that's this. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 says, "But we do not want you to be uninformed." I like the way the translation I'm used to, it says, "But we do not want you to be uninformed or ignorant, brethren, about those who have died, that you may not grieve as others who have no hope." Now that's the caveat. We are instructed to grieve, but not as those who have no hope. So think about that. If you don't have hope, we know that one day we will be in heaven with Kimberly will be in heaven with her father, and that reunion is what we look forward to. His father lived till into his 90s,
He did.
and he was healthy, except for the last few years.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay, this is some good genes. His
Right.
mother lived
Right.
into her late 80s, and so you just kind of think, well, that'll be where he goes, but. With hope, it's not about how long you live in this life.
Yeah.
Hope is the life on the other side of this one.
Yeah.
And that's that when you grieve as those, not as those who have no hope. And so the reason I asked you about despair is, of course, there's sadness because you're going to miss him.
Yes.
Of course, there's, a desire to see him. And, they always would walk down the street holding hands.
Yeah.
And, some of those beautiful things that dads and daughters have. And
Right.
it was kind of a neat thing. But, you miss those things and you're sad about that. But the despair is where I'll never see him again.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
Yeah, and for those of you who lost somebody, it's almost like you wake up and you just can't believe you're there. Although, like my mom, I've had years of kind of being able to prepare for the possibility, and I didn't even share this, but he had a second heart attack in our home. What
Yeah.
was it now? A year?
2 years.
No, was it?
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Let's stay with a while ago.
Yeah, so if anybody should have been prepared, it's us. But that's the point. You're never really ready.
Yeah.
And when you go through it, there are definitely different waves of grief, and it looks different depending on the day.
So as you know, with COVID, what happens with a lot of people is the first flush of COVID, you might have a cough or you might have, this problem or that problem, and you lose your smell and have a high fever and feel sluggish and really tired. And he had all those things. I don't know if he lost his smell, but he, at the about 10-day mark or so, is when he couldn't breathe very well. So at that time, he had to go into the hospital, and they put him into the hospital. And I was convinced all the way up until the day he went on the ventilator that he was going to be okay. They had him in an oxygen room. But here's the sad thing, when you want to say goodbye, they're going to pass. I mean, he knew he was going.
He did. And that's
And
one
he
of the things I want to
said-
share is that
Yeah, go ahead.
he actually, our last communication with him, because of COVID, we weren't physically able to be in the room, which just that was the moments of despair right there but he would, before he was ventilated, we would text together. He would send, texts and tried phone calling. And he actually contacted my mom and I the night before. He was intubated, and he asked us to read scripture. So he was in tears. And then we were able to have a final Zoom call with my dad before he was intubated, and that was deeply moving. But he said in that call, I want you to know that I've been having dreams for the last couple months, and God's been preparing my heart. He said, I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I get to see Jesus, and I love you. And he was able to, say that he loved us, loved all the grandkids and his family. He intentionally sent texts to every one of the grandkids and was able to communicate. So there was beautiful closure in a very unique way, but heartbreaking that we weren't together with him physically. So
Yeah, we got to talk to him, and that was with your brothers and your mom and so forth.
Yeah.
That last
Zoom call.
Yeah. Before that, before you left, we were able to talk to him.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital, and he's in an oxygen room. And he just, to have those words, those final words said that my father said to me, and I'll share my story in a couple of weeks, but my father told me he was proud of me. Those were the last words he told me. And those were the last words your
Yeah.
dad said to me.
To both of us,
and
yeah.
to you. And
Yeah.
it was just really
Beautiful
powerful.
gift.
I've
Yeah.
had really two dads, and I've had some honorary dads that have been some great men in my life and some mentors and so forth. But Paul Adams and Bill Scott were my two, and they're almost exactly alike.
They're so similar.
They're so similar.
Yeah.
But they knew the power
Yes.
of reaching into your heart and saying that. Now,
Yes.
when we share that, some of you did not get the joy of that and maybe have some regrets. or you wish that would have happened. All I can say to you is this: that when we know that that person is now present with the Lord, it's a powerful thing. So what we're going to do is over the next few weeks relate scripture and relate testimony of how we go through it. What we're going to do next time is we're going to finish what we had prepared today. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this passage I read, 1 Thessalonians 4:13, and really kind of break that down a little bit. And then a couple other things that we want to share is how grief is really a choice. So we want to talk about how you can really choose to grieve well. Mm-hmm. Every one of us makes a choice. And also to know that sometimes grief hits you. You don't have a choice. But you have a choice. How do you respond to that? So we'll talk about that next time. We're so glad you've been patient with us while we've been on this hiatus.
Yeah.
It's been good for us. Our road trip, our time with Kimberly's father, and moving Kimberly's mom into our home, and all of the things that's transpired over the last 4 or 5 weeks has really been valuable to us as a couple and as a family. Yeah. And so thank you for your patience. We're glad to be back. We're going to be back now, solid. We've got some great podcasts planned for you and a new form of podcast that's coming up. I'll share more about that. It's coming up at the end of the summer. I'm very excited about that. And if you would like the new book that I have out, it's called Breathe, Overcoming Anxiety and Depression, overcoming anxiety, depression, and negative emotions. So it is on Amazon. It is on Barnes & Noble. But you can get a deal from us if you go to our website, hoperescue.org, hoperescue.org, and we have the book available there. You can go on your smartphone or on your computer, and we'd love to send that to you. We're just really excited about the impact that's going to have. We're going to be sharing more about that and doing some podcasts on anxiety, depression, negative emotions, etc. So thank you for listening to our podcast. We're going to get Kimberly some throat lozenges, and we're going to do another podcast, and we hope that you'll be with us next week. And God bless you for listening to Hope Rescue Podcast.